and welcome to the first breakout session of the day. Please give a warm welcome to our next presenters, Greenberg and Jarrett Vogel.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is wild and wonderful. I'm so thrilled to be here and to have you here. Just a note, we have information packets, a yellow folder, and then 2 pages on top. Can you please make sure you have them? We put them all on that side, along with an ABLE t-shirt. I have a few housekeeping things to go over. Please place your phones on vibrate. Even though this is being recorded for the internet, we'd rather not take individual photos and recording devices. It's up to you. We appreciate if everyone wears a mask, As we have a reduced time allocated, normally our program runs an hour and a half. We're limited to 1 hour today. So we made it more concise. So please hold your questions to the end. We will be here after 12 o'clock to 12:30 to address any of your questions. If you think of another question, you'll have Karen's email address, and I'm told on the Family Cafe Facebook page, you'll be able to post questions, and we will respond to everyone.
Take your mask off.
I can take my mask off. There'll be a pop quiz. This is important. At about 11:50 with a fabulous, unique gift for the winner. It'll be based on one of the statements you'll hear during our program, okay, so please pay attention. If you have a parent support group, preferably in South Florida, between the East Coast and West Coast, Naples, Fort Myers, we'd love to go visit there if you have an existing parent support group. So feel free to get in touch with us to do our full program, which is not only benefits and tax savings, but also the basics of special needs planning. That'll be very informative. Finally, one of the pages, the single sheets, is like a profile of what your interests are, what you want for your kid. Please fill that out, and if you write neatly, complete the whole page, then when we collect them before the end, we will send to you a letter of intent, which is a profile of your child that you would want someone else to know about. Everything you know about your child, you want to pass on to maybe a future caregiver. It's something you would update every year. Also, our service agreement you'll read about, it's one of the handouts. We'll discount that. Normally it's $400. We'll reduce it to $300 if you retain us as advocates by August 1st. And also I'll include in the email a list of all the ABLE accounts across the country, which have different features and benefits than Florida, although Florida is wonderful. So we're going to, one other question. Has anyone seen the latest a device by Apple? It's incredible. It's called the eye patch. I made that up. All right, let's get started. So our motto, what's a motto? Oh, not much. What's a motto with you? We're about the process, not the products. I formerly was 35 years in finance. Well, I'll get into that later. We'd like to also ask you if you're interested to support the Autism Services Grants Council. The extra money they get for the vanity plates, they give out as grants to other nonprofits. And I'm very happy that we've received grants from them for 4 out of the past 7 years, which has allowed us to come here today. And those are our license plates. Guess which one is awesome? This guy. So as you can see, we're an educational nonprofit organization. Our mission is to educate and advocate for parents through the process. We work with many attorneys across the state of Florida, and if you're in a town where you don't have maybe an attorney that you know of, we'll try to find one for you, and then work telephonically with the first meeting with you and the attorney out there. So we're very thrilled to be here again. We missed last year, but this is our 14th year at the Family Cafe, and thank you everyone for joining us. So as mentioned, a 501c3, Karen started it in 1996, following the birth and diagnosis of her son, Ricky. And we are a very unique nonprofit. We're not attorneys. We don't sell insurance or financial products, which I used to. We're purely about helping you through the process as your advocates. Karen has an MBA degree in taxation. She's a certified financial planner, and she's an enrolled agent, which is the highest level of tax preparer recognized by the IRS. No, I'm not sleeping with an IRS agent, but she could appear in court if needed, just like an attorney or a CPA. But in my 20 years with her, no one's needed that. And she's helped a number of organizations over the past 30 years. In fact, she was one of the first special needs planners in the country. There's a New York Times article from 1993 where she discusses the Special Needs Trust.
It's in your packet.
What? Did you put that there?
No,
I don't know.
I know.
Well, anyway, I'm Jarrett Vogel. She's the brains, I'm the brawn. Come on and make lots of money. I'm retired finally after 35 years. I finally got my BS degree. And anyone who knows me knows I'm pretty good at BS. After 40 years from Brooklyn College. Just got it last week. Thank you. Thanks for the clap. I'm also a certified senior advisor, which is very related to the special needs community, which is why I got that designation. And we work with attorneys and the families together. This is the previous version of the Special Needs Tax Credit Act. It's an idea I came up with and was assisted by Congressman Robert Wexler and introduced by Congressman Ted Deutsch. It's being reintroduced this week in Congress, and it would help lower income families with the cost of guardianship. It would provide up to a $5,000 refund for the cost of establishing guardian for a person with disabilities. As mentioned, our mission is to teach families what they should know, what they should do, what they shouldn't do, what their family members shouldn't do to mess up the plan. Hopefully you'll put in place. And we'll always be available for your questions going forward. And again, we're about the process, not the products. So our first step, and this is all in the service agreement in the packets, is we meet with you in person and or telephonically to get the big picture of you and your family, what you have in place, what you'd like to have in place. We go over briefly your assets and your goals for the future for your special needs planning. Hopefully people who come to our program are ready to go, so if we hear from you, you know it's time for you to get started. Has anyone here been to another program with us over the past 14 years? Anyone? Great. Well, happy to have you join us again. Look forward to your call. So you have our phone numbers and email addresses in the packets.
Oh, and I'm told that you can also leave us a message on Facebook, on the Family Cafe Facebook page, and we'll get back to you if you have any questions.
These are some of the things. The letter of intent, again, is a biography. You write about your child. Anything you want someone else to know, it's a Word document. You can customize it, email it to future caregivers. Everything that's up here you can put down in print. We have some additional materials. After you've decided to work with us, we forward our intake notes to the attorney you'll choose, and we'll help you, find the right person. So the first meeting would not be a cold meeting. He'll have a lot of the basic information they'll go over with you, but that's all part of helping you through the process. And while you can do it yourself, go to the attorney, blah, blah, blah. If you have a special needs trust, you need to file a tax return every year. We include in our service agreement the first 2 years' tax returns for your special needs trust.
I would do that.
She's a smart one. We can provide some advice on Medicaid, SSI. Again, other questions you might have, we'll try to answer. If we don't know it, we'll find someone who does.
Okay, let's go.
And there you have our discount available by August 1st. This is a multifaceted process. It takes a number of different skills to put your plan in action: an advisor, which we try to be, a great attorney, your investment and insurance person, a tax preparer who's experienced in special needs deductions, and we have an ongoing service and referral network. And I'll introduce my lovely wife.
This is a picture of my kids. Ricky is 21 in this photo at his sister's wedding. Jamie was 4 years older than Ricky. This was the occasion of her wedding. Ricky is wearing his first suit ever. And at the age of 6, I suppose, Ricky was attending a special needs school, and teachers and therapists who were working with him started to talk to me about the future. And they said, he's doing well, but he probably will never be gainfully employed. You probably will always need to support him. And Ricky, being born with hydrocephalus and then later developing autism and fairly low functioning. Today he's 33. He's like a typical 4-year-old. He needs constant supervision. So this was the first time I really thought about what life would be like for him, for us, and how could I make this life better for him, financially stable. I didn't know. I asked an attorney I knew, what do people do? Because with all my training in certified financial planning and taxes, I really had no idea what the government provided, what we could do to make his life stable, financially stable. And so I needed to find out. The attorney said to me, and unfortunately this was the ad hoc advice of the day, leave everything to your daughter, she'll take care of your son. Jamie, as I said, was 4 years old when he was born. But I knew as a financial planner that this was very bad advice. Because of my training, I knew that if you leave money to one person to take care of another person, you're leaving your money at risk. Not because my daughter doesn't love and won't be there for her brother. I knew she would. But I didn't want to burden her life. I wanted her to be able to have the life where she could do whatever it is she wanted to do in her life, be there for her brother, but not necessarily have to put her life on hold. I didn't want to burden her with that. This is my child, not hers. So I wanted to look into, you've heard the word synergy. I wanted to look into what we could do, what the government offered, and how could I make everything work together and create more for his lifetime. Ricky will have a normal lifespan. He's well in every respect physically. So I don't expect that he will have a shortened life, but I wanted him to make sure that every day that went by, he'd have options, he'd be able to do the things that he loves to do. That's what I wanted for him.
Co-trustee, co-trustee, co-trustee.
So what I did was, what I found out was that the government does have certain programs, and I'm going to go over those with you, but in order to be eligible for those programs, which are mostly needs-based, you need to have a lower level of income and assets. So basically, you can't leave money to the person with a disability and also avail yourself of government benefits. In other words, they're mutually exclusive in a way. However, I did find out that there were a number of, you have the slide thing?
Yeah. But you made her your trustee.
Yeah, I did find out that there was something called a special needs trust. It actually came about in 1993, around the time I was doing this planning for Ricky. And I found another attorney who was able to, at that point, do a will, creating the trust in my will. And then later on, I wanted to create the trust while we were living. Can you go to the next slide?
It's Jamie. It's Jamie's photo, so just say you made her a trustee.
Oh, okay. So I found out that you could write this document for your family, and it could be tailor-made to your circumstance. And it's called a special needs trust.
At age 30.
And so I put in my document that at age 30, my daughter Jamie would become a trustee alongside me to take care of any money that we've placed inside of it, and to make sure that it was used properly for his lifetime. And, you know, the best plans. You heard the expression, man plans, God laughs. I did a really wonderful job planning and assumed, I had no reason not to assume, that Jamie would always be there. And several years ago, she had lymphoma. She passed. She left a 3-year-old son. The best plans will be able to go on without us because they're flexible, and we can provide for these unbelievable, tragic things that could happen in our lifetime. And you never expect that a young person of 35 is going to pass, but it happens. So anyway, going back to what I found out. When I visited the law library and I looked into different sorts of ways to create a plan, and this is something that I'm good at because this is my training, I found out that there are certain government programs that can provide for basic needs of a person with a disability. But as I said before, many of these programs are needs-based. And actually, a person can have no more than $2,000 in their name, in their Social Security number, which really leaves a person without any options at all. You really can't make a lot of decisions when you only have $2,000. It's practically no money. Plus, it's a stipend from the government. But again, needs-based. Your income has to be low. Your asset level has to be low. So, and I also found out other things that you need to, very important, maintain that eligibility. So that you can't leave a will and leave assets to your child because that will preclude your child from getting government benefits and getting help. You also have to review the beneficiary designation on IRAs and pension plans. Make sure that the child is not named. But when you create a special needs trust, because this is a law passed by the IRS and Congress, that any person with a disability can have funds in a special needs trust, and it doesn't count against them for purposes of qualifying for these needs-based programs. So it's a win-win solution. You just have to do it. So you have to know to change the beneficiaries on those kinds of accounts if you have them already established. You may not have thought of it. I know I didn't. And you can change those things. And you also need to know that in order to maintain SSI and Medicaid, you can't give your child money to spend. You have to think of more creative ways. So it might include debit cards, gift cards, things like that, where your child can, if they want to go out and spend money, that they have the availability to do that. Next slide. So these are the public benefits, and the most important one to us as the parents is SSI and Medicaid. And a lot of parents ask me, how can I get SSI now? My child is 4, my child is 10. And the problem is you can apply for SSI, but your family income is deemed to the child. In other words, your assets are his assets when he's under 18. But at 18, you can go to Social Security, you can make an appointment, you can apply for SSI and Medicaid, which comes with SSI, for your child with a disability. So at 18, your child can actually qualify for these programs on his own. And there's other sorts of public benefits, as I have listed here. SSDI is a sort of government program, Social Security, for folks like us who are working, who have quarters of service that can get disability if we should become disabled, a Social Security disability for people who have earned credits, and Medicare. But because our children have never really worked, never had gainful employment, they'll be getting SSI until we apply for benefits, so that when we retire, as the parents, we retire, our child will get 1/2 of what we would get as for retirement. So that SSI will probably go up, and it will be called SSDI at some point. Next slide. So in order to qualify for SSI and Medicaid, it's not just qualifying, but maintaining the eligibility. As you can see, you can't, you have to have a functional disability, and you cannot have more than $2,000, which means that you need to really pay attention to how assets are structured. And you can use a special needs trust to hold assets at your passing. Other family members can contribute to the special needs trust. So the special needs trust would be a fund of money to be used on behalf of your child. Your child will not have the ability to access those funds only through a trustee. And we can be the trustees, then our other children can be trustees. And this document that we write with an attorney is tailor-made to the family. So you don't have to worry. You want to get it established as soon as possible, have the ability to put aside these funds. Next slide.
I'm going to pass out those yellow folders.
Okay. Okay, so the other part of this program is taxes. And I know if you're like me, every year you sit down to do your taxes or with your tax professional, and they may ask you a question, do you have any medical expenses? And as a parent of a disabled child, there are a lot of medical expenses, and they're not what you normally would consider to be medical in the typical sense of the word. So it's really important to understand what things could be deductible on your tax return for your child. And our children turn out to be very expensive. I mean, I wanted to buy a bicycle for my son. Yes. Typical bicycle might have been $200, $300. For him, $2,000, because everything that you want to make, anything you want to purchase for your child is going to be 10 times the amount. So it seems like you're always spending money, and you want to protect your child. You're always trying to put together everything you can to protect your child. But when you're doing your taxes, you can look at the medical section of the tax return. It's on Schedule A, and understand that there are many things that you might not typically think of as deductible are medical expenses. These are the typical medical expenses you would think of: health insurance, doctors, dentists, prescription drugs, nursing care, eyeglasses, and so forth. But there are many things that you may not have thought of. For example, if your child attends a special school and you have to pay tuition, if you have to buy books, if you buy auxiliary learning books or devices, these could also be considered a medical expense. In other words, you have to make a link between the disability and the expense. Keep the receipt, and maybe also, pretty important, to get a letter from the doctor saying he recommends, and for what medical reason, that you get an iPad or a speaking device or whatever it is that will help your child succeed. So you can buy a car, you can get a driver, you can pay for other kinds of transportation for your child to go to school or to work program. You can hire, as your child gets older, hire a patient care aide to be with your child. You have to ask yourself, would I have this expense if my child didn't have a disability? And the answer is no. The typical 13, 14-year-old doesn't need a babysitter, but if you need a babysitter for your kid, it's a tax deduction. And what I suggest is that you get a little receipt book. You can buy one at Staples or Office Depot. You can have the care provider sign a receipt. You can pay them with a check or cash. You don't have to get their social security number, but you can claim it as a medical expense. And as your kids get older, you're going to want to document these sorts of expenses. If you have to hire a tutor or a nurse or anyone else that helps your child function, all of these things would be medical expenses that you can write off on your taxes. Even use of your own car, 17 cents a mile, medical mileage is deductible. So if you're driving your kid to school, and if the school is 30 miles away, that kind of mileage does really add up. So you want to keep a little diary of your auto use. If your child attends after-school programs, let's say your child is good in gymnastics or has an interest in dance. These seem to be social programs, but if it helps your child with social interactions, with physical interactions, then you can have the pediatrician, the neurologist write a letter. Just you keep it in your file. You don't have to attach it to your tax return. Keep your receipt for whatever you pay for, but you can, as long as you can make a link between the type of expense and the disability, you can write it off on your income tax. Just save your receipts. And so there's so many things, gymnastics, horseback riding, swimming, lessons, that help our kids physically and mentally, and help them release anxiety, which a lot of our children have. And all of those, you can make a case for all of those things to write off. As I said before, tutoring, if you need to have babysitters so that you can, and not just work, but if you can go out with your other children, you can go out with your spouse, friends, you need to have that time. And all of that is tax deductible because of your child's disability. And also, attending a conference like this, or if you, this is considered education for you, learning about your child's disability. Or if you have to go to a doctor out of town, you can stay in a hotel, $50 per person per day for lodging, and those are all qualified medical expenses. Just keep your receipts, get your letters from your doctors, get a fresh letter every year about anything that's ongoing that you think of that will enhance your child's life and the family.
And just to note, these deductions are available if you have more than your standard deduction, which you know was bumped up greatly a few years ago, while at the same time they cut out a lot of things we used to be able to deduct.
Yeah, in the last few years they've changed the tax code a bit, but a lot of our families can deduct expenses, and there is enough. If you think of all of these different things, there is enough to write off on your taxes. Anyway, it's worth paying attention to it during the year, because at tax time you're going to sit down and you're going to say, well, what can I write off? And if your tax preparer says, no, you can't write that stuff off, call me, because you absolutely can, and you know, a lot of tax preparers are not familiar with special needs like I am.
We have an attorney in Broward who is a cantor in a synagogue. And when we first met him, he said, "Oi, you don't know how I prayed to find a tax preparer who knows about special needs."
And you also have to know that this year, the child tax credit is going up from $2,000 to $3,000, and you may be able to, this is for a child under the age of 17, you may be able to receive that as you're going along. In fact, I think the government is going to be sending out checks to families who have a dependent who is under the age of 5 and then under the age of 17. It's differing amounts, and they're going to be sending you checks. So look out for that. That's very new. That's just coming up in July. You can also take a $500 tax credit for older children. So if your child continues to live with you, or if you have other children that are attending college and they're over the age of 17, you still get $500 credit. And credit is against the tax, subtracts from the total tax. So be aware of that as well. As Jarrett said before, you have the option of taking either the standard deduction or itemizing your deductions. The standard deductions has gone up, as you can see from these figures, quite a bit. It used to be half that, but under the new tax law that came about in 2017, we have increased standard deductions. Again, you can take the standard deduction or itemized deduction, but it really takes just a little bit of awareness to remember during the year to save these receipts, and at the end of the year you'll tally it up. Jarrett and I even have one credit card we use for medical expenses. It really helps at the end of the year to have everything in one place. So we use this one credit card, and at the end of the year I just add up all the medical expenses, just about everything I can think of, putting as we have it with Walgreens, with CVS. We use it as co-pays with our doctors. It just really helps you when you're very busy to know where everything is, so you don't lose track of all of these deductions that can turn into be dollars in your pocket. Okay. So the 529 plans that are part of the tax code, usually you think of that as for college, but there is a 529 plan that's called the ABLE tax 529 plan.
Achieving better life expectancy. Achieving better life experience. Sorry. Tab forward. Oh, there it is. Want me to take?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why don't you come over to by the side here? Okay. So the limit to funding an ABLE 529 account is $15,000 per year. It's not tax deductible, but the investments in there will grow tax deferred and come out tax free if used for eligible expenses, which is almost everything supportive of your child. We have the ABLE folks here downstairs. There's a $100,000 maximum value to retain your benefits. If your account would go over that amount, then Medicaid would not be suspended, but SSI would be until you brought it back down. And a few years back, they allowed the beneficiary, if you would, to put in up to $12,500 of their earnings into the ABLE account. So there could be a maximum of $27,500 going in, which again would grow tax deferred and tax free if taken out for your child's needs.
So if the money is used for your child's expenses, basically it's tax free.
Right. And there are many, many states that have ABLE accounts. Florida has 5 investment choices. All of the funds in all of the 529 accounts are no-load funds from your largest companies. But maybe you're more of the do-it-yourselfer. One state might have 14 investment choices. So again, and I would encourage you to complete this profile piece, neatly, completely. And again, I will email to you that in an Excel sheet. You could click on the link, go to any state, as well as, again, the letter of intent and
But going back to
something else.
the
Yeah.
529, it's an account that will not jeopardize public benefits. So very similar to a special needs trust, assets placed in this account, although there are certain limitations, it's not as good as a special needs trust, but in some ways, if you have a higher functioning individual who wants to be able to have some money and manage it himself, it's a great vehicle for your child to be able to learn to handle some money. And it could be his paycheck put in there. It could be some of your funds. There's just a limitation to how much you could add each year and how much in total you could accumulate. Whereas a special needs trust is really unlimited with how much you can put into it and how much it can accumulate. The two things work very, very well together with a lot of our kids.
The assets in the ABLE account actually belong to your child, but it doesn't disallow him from receiving public benefits. And this was created really as a stepping stone, a very low-cost way to get started.
And if you were saving money for college, let's say your child is born, you don't even realize. I know I had a college fund for my son when I first started out. It never even occurred to me that he wouldn't go to college. I just assumed that he would. But college is not for everyone. So this is a much more general fund of money. It doesn't have to be used for college. It could be used for anything for your child. Your child can contribute their paycheck. And it's a way of having your child involved if they have the interest in the facility to do it. It's a way to have them involved in their asset management without giving them too much to deal with. And also other family members can handle it for you too.
If you did start a educational 529 account and something happened, maybe God forbid a traumatic brain injury, you can roll over the education 529 to an ABLE 529.
So that really helps in a situation where you might have started accumulating assets for college and then you find out that the disability is more than, or some of our kids do go to college, but then they have lifelong social issues. So you really can't count on the typical education that our other children can have and be successful. So some of our kids are not successful.
Who can read that very small print? I can. And again, how about if I include this page of differences and similarities between ABLE accounts and special needs trusts? There's a number of them. The ABLE account has a limited amount of money you can put in. The special needs trust could be unlimited. No maximum amount. The investment choices in an ABLE account are specific to the plan you choose, whereas a special needs trust can own basically anything you can own. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate. Would not encourage a trust owning a car. But there's a lot of features in both.
There's also tax advantages to a special needs trust. It can have a certain amount of what we call a standard deduction, like we have on our personal taxes. If it's an irrevocable special needs trust, and that's the sort of special needs trust you should get, you can have $4,150 of income. This is income, not assets, in it that is not taxed at all. It's subject to the standard deduction for the special needs trust. So many of these accounts will not pay income tax for many, many years until you let's say pass and funds are go from your account you hold via your will to pour over to a special needs trust. It won't have enough assets or income to ever have to pay income tax for a really long time, as long as it's irrevocable.
Here's you.
And one final slide, and then we can take questions.
Maybe not.
A lot of our families do experience divorce. I know I did. Ricky's dad and I got divorced. We had a plan set up. I took a long, hard look at our budget, and I wanted to make sure that Ricky would have a comfortable amount of money that would be managed through a trustee for his benefit, and that he would have enough to have choices, like I said, choices, the ability to have the things that he loves. So we were looking at a budget, and I felt like, based on our incomes, we could put $400 a month in the trust. And I did this for over 10 years. I put $400 a month. First day of the month, when I paid the mortgage, when I paid the phone bill, I put the money in Ricky's trust. And after a year, I had $4,800 plus some interest and dividends in the trust, in its own separate account. Basically, the trust gets a federal ID number from the IRS. Basically, you can open an account anywhere. And so I had funds set aside, and I said to a friend of mine who sold insurance, I remembered learning in financial planning that you could have a life insurance policy on the life of two people. It was something that was created by life insurance industry to help those high net worth families that would have a very high estate tax to pay on the second death. So they would hold their money jointly, and the second person that passed, there would be the estate tax to pay to the government. And I remember learning about it, and that it was very affordable to cover the life of two people. And you can see why life insurance companies figure out a premium based on your age and your health. And so you could have a certain amount of money at your passing. And in this case, at the second passing, and it would work very well to go into the special needs trust when you're no longer around to stick your hands in your pocket and give the extras to your child that he asks for. So anyway, we were putting $400 a month, and I went to my friend and I said, so how much, and we kind of worked backwards. I said, how much, let's say with half my budget, let's say $2,200 a year, how much life insurance could we get? Now, we were in our 30s. We were in good health. And he came back and he said, $750,000. And I said, oh, that's a really good start. I want to do that. So I took the money out of the account, had already set aside, paid the first year's premium, and after that, I made sure that I continued to put the $4,800 a year into the account. I did it every month, and I made sure I did it. And then then the life insurance premium bill came. I paid the bill. So Ricky, after a period of over 10 years that Jeff and I were together, accumulated quite a sum of money. We invested it well. We paid for the insurance, and I felt like I had a great plan. You know, I had my daughter, she was going to be there. Everything was in line. I felt like I had done an excellent job. And then, unfortunately, and it happens to a lot of us, divorce.
Bad for him, good for me.
All of a sudden, he was saying, how much money do we need to have in life insurance? How come? You know, he didn't, basically it came down to, he didn't want to continue to fund it. He didn't want to pay for the life insurance. All of a sudden, he just did a 360-degree,
well, 180-degree
turn, and he said, you know, why do I have to do this? And I said to him, you know, I understand where you're coming from, but he is your child, and this is a good plan. And I said, if you don't participate, I'm going to do it anyway. This is a good plan, and I'm not leaving it behind. So, and in my advocating work with parents, this comes up very often. And typical divorce attorneys do not understand special needs families. When they do a dissolution of marriage agreement, they look at children who are going to graduate from college and then suddenly be on their own. And our kids are not. Our kids are going to live with us for a really long time, and we're going to need to support them. And we have all these other expenses like caregivers and even work programs we may have to pay for. And where are they going to live? Housing. Here in Florida, housing could cost $3,000 a month in a really good group home or supported apartment arrangement. So the dads, unfortunately, it's the dads, they walk away from the marriage, they get married again, they start a new family.
Yeah, she doesn't mean this. There's plenty of proactive dads. Let me pause here for
All
a
right,
moment.
but
to get on with the strategy.
But you got to tell the attorney.
So what Karen did, as she mentioned, 10 years, $400 a month, once a year, $2,000 to the insurance company. Then they got divorced. Later on, Karen and I met. She said, you know, I just moved from New York, so my clients didn't come with me. I'm concerned about funding the trust. So I asked her, how much do you have in there? And she said, oh, X amount. And how much income and dividends does it generally make? She said, well, maybe $3,000 a year, $4,000 a year maybe. I said, well, why don't you stop contributing if you have to, take some of those earnings, which are tax-free, $2,000 a year, send that to the insurance company. So ever since, for like 20 years, it's been on what I call autopilot. The investment account earns money, tax-free. She takes $2,000 out, sends it to the insurance company, and boom.
Yeah, sometimes your plan has to adjust.
And this type of insurance, you know, we all know individual life insurance, term or permanent. This is called survivorship or second to die life insurance. And again, pays off at the second passing. So many families, you know, there'll be insurance on the mom, insurance on the dad. This could be a third policy if it makes sense.
This was brilliant advice, and I hadn't even thought of it.
Thank you.
Because I was thinking, oh, I had to come up with $400 a month. And how was I going to do that without the dad's contribution? And it was Jarrett who actually took a step back, looked at it, and said, you know what? You can do it. And I'm so happy that I did find a way to put it on autopilot for a few years and managed to still contribute. And I think that with the life insurance and with the amount of money we put aside, and Ricky lives in New York, so thank goodness most of his expenses are covered by the government. He'll really be okay. But down here in Florida, you really have to think about this, and you really need to make a fund. But this special needs trust, as I said, is tailor-made to your family. You write it with an attorney. We're there with you if you want us to be, to toss out creative ideas. But you can make sure that together, the synergy with what the government offers in terms of public benefits, with what you can put aside as the family, with what your parents or other family members can contribute. And, you know, I would bring this up at holidays, and, you know, I would tell my family, they don't know about special needs trust, and, you know, if they don't never really took an interest in it. But so I would bring it up. I'd say, you know, we have this trust fund for Ricky, and this is going to be his a retirement account forever, and they understand retirement accounts. And after a while, you know, when Ricky was little, it wasn't so much of an issue, but as he got older and he was a little bit different, they would say to me, what's the name of that trust again? And they would write out his birthday gifts to the special needs trust. And I'd squirrel the money aside. I'd put it away in the trust. And when we need the money for the extras, Ricky is always breaking his glasses.
And computers.
Yeah, I bought him 3 computers this year. During the pandemic, I guess he was very hard on his computer. This is what he likes, and I want to make sure he has what he likes.
And it's also very important, if you do create a trust for your child, that you let your other family members know, your aunts, uncles, grandparents, et cetera, not to leave a bequest in their will to your child, but rather your child's special needs, irrevocable trust, dated, whatever.
So anybody can contribute to this trust, and they can leave it without doing any extra work. They could just make a provision in their will saying that instead of the bequest they want to leave to all their other grandchildren, the trust, the amount that they would have left to Ricky, they want to go to the Ricky Rubin Special Needs Trust. That's all the information
That's Ricky Rubin Special Needs.
That's all they need to know, and you can give them the federal ID number, and they can put it right in their will, and that's it. So you can have your family members on board. Just tell them. And, you know, after a while, they're going to ask you, well, what is the name of that trust? You know, they're going to get serious about their documents as well. But it's very important for you, as a family, to not only have a will, If you don't have a will, the government of Florida has a will for you. It's called dying intestate. And the government has a statute that says that your money is distributed according to that statute. So a certain portion of it, I think it's a third, goes to your spouse. The rest goes to your other children, all your children. It doesn't matter that your child has a disability. And nobody is going to ask you that. So if you don't have a will, your child is going to wind up inheriting money. Your child inherits money, Ssi and Medicaid go bye-bye. So you need to think of that, create this trust while you're living. You can name it in your will, but why not do it while you're living? Why not do it on a sunny day? And put the provisions in place. Start the account.
I just want to mention we have about 10 minutes left. So I'd like to ask you all now, if you haven't done so, please fill in your profile, what you're interested in. I'll come by right before we end to pick them up. And this way, again, I can email you some very important documents you can use. There's no cost to that. We can contact you if we're going to be in your area afterwards. Again, if you have a parent support group, we'd love to speak. And let's see, what time we have is?
5-2.
I have 11:51, so in 4 minutes we're going to do the pop quiz.
Do we have it here?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
that's right down. So I'll just skim through these other slides. Again, our full program goes over this information plus a lot of the basics. We have a few slides here about, again, if you don't have a will, government has one for you, and it may not be what you need or want. It's called dying intestate. Even if you can't afford to go to an attorney, you can go online, download a will specific for your state. You fill in the blanks, you get it signed and notarized by a few people. That's better than nothing.
But if you go to one of the attorneys that we work with, you can get a complete package of documents, 2 wills, special needs trust for a flat sum of money. Also, there's other documents like power of attorneys, and you can have all of those things done.
So we can maybe just take a, let's do this. I'm going to have the pop quiz question, then we'll take some Q&A, and we'll stay here till 12:30.
And also, I'll tell you that you can always email me or call me. You have my card. If you have any other questions that I haven't addressed here, I'd be pleased to talk to you if you have any questions.
Karen will decide the winner, and the pop quiz question is, who's the cutest guy in the room? You're right, I am. Now, Karen crocheted this cute little lion.
I'm a toy maker. I'm one of Santa's elves.
I had no idea, but she has made blankets or tapestries. Unbelievable. 3D, 5 feet square. I had no idea. My artwork is my landscaping at home. She's beautiful, she's bright, she's a great cook. Winner! Let's have some Q&A.
Anybody have any questions? Yes. Could you stand up and?
You're very welcome.
Okay, this is the way it works with the medical expenses. You could accumulate all your medical expenses, your prescriptions, doctors, dentists, and all these special need things I discussed. You add them all up. Then you got to subtract 7.5% of adjusted gross income. Adjusted gross income is your wages, what's on your W-2, in your investment income. You add up all of that total and multiply by 7.5%. That's subtracted from your medical expense. So anything over 7.5% of your income is deductible as a medical expense, along with your mortgage interest, your property taxes, charitable contributions. That's all we have left. They took away a lot of the deductions we normally could take on Schedule A. Yes, back there. Yeah, you have to qualify as a family because your income is deemed to the child. So if you have a disability or if your child has a disability, you can make an application to Social Security to get SSI. But I think if the family income is more than $32,000, you won't be able to get SSI for your child until your child is 18. So 18 is the magic age. You gotta look into guardianship because that's a very important thing. Some of our kids do need to have supervision ongoing. Naming a legal guardian is very important. You have to go to court to do that. There is a different kind of guardianship in Florida that is a little bit easier to obtain, but guardianship is a very, very important thing to consider. And so at 18, you're going to want to do both things. You're going to want to apply for SSI with your child, who is now an adult and qualifies on their own, and you're going to want to also look into guardianship. Any other questions? Yes?
Yes, ma'am. If I could throw two questions your way. One, we're very blessed to enjoy the Gardner Scholarship. So our question is, can you take some of that money and put it in a 529 account, or or a special needs trust?
The money that you get from the scholarship?
Yes.
Do you get that money outright? You don't have to use it for the school?
Well, yes, we use it for books, and we get it for devices that help our child.
If they give it to you, you can put it in a special needs trust.
We can.
Yes, I think you can. Yeah. Yeah, you can put anything in a special needs trust and then use it immediately. You do not have to wait for any specific time. There's no age limit like 59 and a half. It's immediately available for you to write checks. As trustee, you can write checks for anything for your child.
Follow-up question was about the ABLE account. If our child were to die with the money in the account, there's some questions about whether or not that money can be used for other children or if the government is going to take it.
I think that there's probably named beneficiaries, and you can probably do that, or your will. It's probably an asset. If your child has special needs trust, it says what happened at his passing. So if he has anything in his name, it would go to the, or any assets of the trust would go to the people that you've named. So there's no payback to the state of Florida for the special needs trust if it's funded with your money or other family members' money. But if it's funded through a slip and fall, if your child had a lawsuit, there are different provisions that determine how the money is transferred as a child's death. I didn't go into that, but there is another type of special needs trust you could use called a first-party special needs trust with the child's own money. But I think, yeah, I think basically you could put it in the special needs trust and use it for anything, as long as it's for the child.
The concern is over the ABLE account.
I think you can name another owner of an ABLE account.
Medicare puts a lien on it. Medicaid puts a lien on the ABLE account.
Oh, do they? Oh, well, so then it's like a first-party special needs trust. It's considered the child's own money. So you don't want to put too much money in special needs into the ABLE account. You also have a special needs trust where you can put that money for other purposes, or at the child's passing, it could go to other family members and not back to the state of Florida. The third-party special needs trust will go according to the terms of the trust.
Thank you.
Yes? I think whoever started the account, if it goes to your child, then you're going to want to put it either in an ABLE account, or you're going to, which then can be used for other things for her, or if it's a typical 529 account that you've established for education, it can go to other children in the family. So you have a couple of options about that, but that's why it's important when you're thinking about what you're going to do with your money, to not make any assumptions that your child is going to go to college. Your child may not go to college. That's why special needs trust is so admirable because it can go for anything. It could own real estate. You could then sell the real estate and use it for a group home. Makes it.
See, my daughter's 11, so I don't want to make a decision because she could very well go to college.
Yeah, so put it in a special needs trust. Then you can use it for college or anything. And it's going to be tax deferred. You're going to have all the advantages without having to tie it up or worry about what happens in the unlikely event that she predeceases you. Anybody else? Yes, back there. You could take the standard deduction, and if you have an older child or a college student child or an adult parent, a parent of yours living with you, you can use you can take the $500 tax credit. No. It might phase out at certain levels. I'm not sure offhand, but I think you have, maybe it phases out at $500,000 of income. Yes. I'm sorry? And still maintain their SSI? Okay, so what happens with SSI? Your child has SSI and starts working. I think your child can make, you can find out from Social Security exactly what it is. I think it's around $20,000. After that, there's a payback, $1 for every $2 they make. So there's a certain amount of money they're allowed to make, something like $50 or $75 a month. And then up above that, they lose $1 for every $2 they make in a job if their income is over a certain level. But as long as they have $1 of SSI, they can still have Medicaid. Yes? I would say yes, you should file a tax return every year, even if it's zero. On the trust return. The trust should file a return every year. That way you know, if there are deductions that you can take on the trust tax return, they get carried forward. So it's a good idea to do it every year, even if it's zero, even if there's no tax to pay, still file it. I do those all the time, and very often my clients, my tax clients, I'll include the special needs trust tax return if it's no activity with the cost of their regular tax return. So there's no reason not to do it. Yes? There's usually what we call a poison pill paragraph in a special needs trust that says something like, well, what happens at the child's passing? But it says if this trust is no longer advantageous to the child for some reason, you can dissolve it. The trustee can dissolve it and then distribute any money in it to the child. So if they change the law, I don't expect that that's going to happen. These things will get grandfathered in. So even if you have one and they say that you no longer can have one, if you have one already established, you can probably continue to use it. But there's the poison pill in there. We always put that in, so just in case. But this was a really new law, 1993. When I was looking for this for my son, there was nothing like that yet. Any other questions? Yes, sir. You can apply for Medicaid if he meets the income requirement. There's no reason not to have it. Medicare is better, pays for more things, more variety of doctors. So getting on Medicare is better, but there are Medicaid waiver programs it can pay actually you to take care of your son if your son is living with you. If you can get it, get it. Apply for everything you can get. Just make sure you know what the requirements are. Make sure you don't run afoul of the requirements. Yes, ma'am.
Can you have both Medicaid and Medicare?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you can get them both. Now, as I said, Medicare is preferable. There's more doctors that take it. Some Medicare plans cover some dental. Medicaid is usually the first payer, and then after that, Medicare would chime in. It's very difficult to find a dentist that takes Medicaid, so having Medicare is good, or a dental policy. There's no reason why you can't have that. Have as many things that you can, and your special needs trust can pay for it. So there's no reason not to have it. Make a part of your plan to get everything that you can get for your child. The idea to have as much as possible for your child to have everything that he wants that makes his life rewarding. I say get up every day and look forward to his day. So whatever that means to him. For my son, it's playing games on his computer, or he has a little job. He delivers Meals on Wheels. It's really wonderful for people to have, no matter what their level of ability, to be able to wake up and have the things that they love to have, and have the people.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
There's no silly questions, only silly answers.
SSI versus SSDI. Now, I understand SSDI is sometimes, I guess, for people who are disabled and working, or were working and became disabled.
Yeah.
But is it also not for people who have retired and then their child?
Yes, that's right. So when your child is 18, you're probably still going to be working. Okay, so your child will get SSI first. That's the first public benefits you'll look to get. SSI comes with Medicaid. But when you retire, or your spouse retires, your child's SSI is going to be half of what you get. And it continues at your passing, too. I think at your passing, it's actually 3/4 of your...
Is it called SSI then still?
No, it becomes SSDI. But Social Security will write to you. They know that when you've applied for benefits. So then you'll get a letter saying SSI is terminated, now it's SSDI. The child may get both. You may get SSI up to the amount and then the rest as SSDI, and then have Medicaid and Medicare. Yeah, so that's going to happen. At some point, you're going to retire from your job if you live long enough, and your child will have both. So that's something to look forward to, have a little more money. SSI is now around, I think, it's $725 a month. Now, with SSI, when you go in to apply, they're going to ask you what the living arrangement is. And if you say your child lives with you, they're going to give you a third less. It's just, you're paying for some of it? Okay, great, we're going to give you less money. That's Social Security's thinking. You need it more, we'll give you less. Okay? So what you have to do in the SSI application is say that your child is a family of one, a household of one living in your home, and is agreed to pay you rent. Now, we have a rental agreement we give parents, and you just have your child, sign it, saying he agrees to pay, let's say, $500 a month. Somewhere between the 2/3 amount, which is something like $550, and the full amount, which is $725. So you come up with some amount for rent, for room and board in your home. And you have your child sign it. And then you actually in fact, do this the day before you go into Social Security, or a week before. Have your child give you, let's say, 2 months of rent. So let's say it's $500. From your child's account, you write a check for $1,000 to you. You put it in your account. Then you can take that money and you can fund your special needs trust with it. Or you could use it for expenses, whatever. But do this. And then when you go into Social Security, you say, look, I have a rental agreement. My son has agreed to pay $500 a month rent. Here's the account. He's already paid the first 2 months' rent. He paid a security deposit and a first month's rent. And then you have that in your account now because he's paid it to you. Then you can do whatever you want with it. And then keep doing it. So you make sure you get the full amount of SSI, not the 2/3. But they love to give you less if you need more. Yeah.
That money he would give you as rent is not going to be taxable because if it had to be taxable, then you would prorate all of your expenses, your mortgage,
and
your
you would never have to
utilities,
pay-
everything else, and it would zero out.
Right now, Social
also,
Security is not requiring that you put that on your tax return, so don't worry about it.
if they asked, does there a separate entrance? Does he have his own kitchen? Ask to see their POMS manual, Procedure Operating
Procedure
Manual.
Operation Manual.
Yeah.
Social Security clerks make up the rules sometimes. They may tell you something that isn't true. So if they tell you something like your child needs to have his own kitchen or his own entrance, ask to see that in writing because it isn't part of the POMS. And I don't know, sometimes some parents have said to me that they felt when they applied that the person that was handling their account there at Social Security was not, kind of had the modus operandi that they weren't entitled to it and they were challenging them. Don't let them intimidate you. If your child is 18 and has a disability, you have the medical records. Do bring the neurology report. Do bring the diagnosis with you
IEP.
and all your medical forms. IEPs from school, everything that demonstrates your child's functional capacity. You should be able to get SSI at 18, and you should be able to get the full amount. Just go in with the rental agreement and your child's documents, and there shouldn't be any reason why you won't get the full amount. And if for some reason they make a determination that you're not entitled to it, ask to speak to somebody else. It can get bumped up to
Next
another
question.
level.
So when you have that rental agreement, because we have that rental agreement, we don't have to claim that as extra income on our taxes?
Right now, I'd say no. Social Security has not come out with something saying that you must show that you filed a Schedule E. What you would do with rental income, if you did have a two-bedroom house, or a two-family house, and you rented part of it, you'd have to claim it on Schedule E on your tax return. But then you can take a portion of your insurance, your utilities, everything that you paid that prorate to the apartment to offset the rent. So that's what you would have to do. But I think in this case, since we're talking about room and board, it wouldn't, not all of it is for rent, even though you're calling it rent. Some of it is for board, which is food.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, it can have a condo. You can buy a condo, or you can have a condo and donate it or gift it to the Special Needs Trust. And well, that wouldn't be deductible, but the property taxes could be deductible on the Special Needs Trust tax return. No. Anything that goes through the Special Needs Trust, that's the beauty of it. It's not considered the child's asset for purposes of qualifying for any of these public benefits.
One family on the West Coast bought a house near their existing house and maybe had 3 or 4 bedrooms. So their daughter took 1 bedroom. Then they had like 2 or 3 other special needs families, kids, move in. They created their own group home, and that income probably paid the mortgage.
It's a creative strategy. And the parents were all involved and and everybody had Medicaid, so they got some staffing as well through Medicaid. So it was really a win-win for everybody. The other 2 residents of the home paid the rent to the family that started bought the house.
They paid it to the
And
trust.
then if your circumstances change, if you buy a condo and it's owned by the trust, you can always sell the condo. The money will go back into the trust, and then it could be used for a group home or some other sort of living arrangement, whatever works. So it's really, really flexible. There really isn't anything you can't do with a special needs trust, except you don't want to pay for something that Medicaid will pay for. So if Medicaid will pay to pull a tooth, but won't pay for the implant to replace the tooth, then you can have the tooth pulled through your Medicaid, that will pay that fee, and then your special needs trust can then pay for the implant or any other crowns, anything else that Medicaid doesn't cover. So you just want to don't duplicate the benefit that Medicaid will provide, obviously.
One last question. Yeah.
I always answer my own phone. You can always call me. I'm very happy to answer any questions. And I know this is a lot of information that I've just given you, and I know you're going to have questions, and you can, like I said, write a message to me on Facebook. You also have my email address. Call me. I'll be very happy to answer any questions you have. And keep in mind, I've not only done this for my own son, but I've done this with probably hundreds, maybe thousands of families over the years. I started this organization in, 1996. And since then, I've been speaking to parent groups and been first in New York and now here in Florida, been a person people turn to because the attorneys are excellent. They write the documents. They're really good at that. But then you don't know how to use it. The attorneys don't really show you how this works. Your inclination is to come home, put it away, and file it away. But I want to show you how to use it, how to make synergy, how to make sure you don't run afoul of the rules pertaining to public benefits, and how to make sure that you use this thing in the most tax advantage way to accumulate as much income or assets for your child, talk to your family. There's so much involved in creating a plan, and things happen. Sometimes your plan is wonderful, like mine was, and then who would have thought my daughter would pass away? So it just you just never know what's going to happen. But the thing is that you just have to have confidence that your plan will work. If it's flexible enough, you can find a way around anything that happens. So
Thank you all again. We're happy to have you. And again, if you have referrals, feel free to give them our phone number. You want us to speak at your event, probably in South Florida, or one lovely lady said we could do a Zoom call, but we prefer to do like a group setting. So thanks again and enjoy your weekend.
thank you.
Thanks again for the clap.